Anyway, welcome to the show, Will.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to
What's
have you
going
on
on?
here.
Thanks
Been
for
a big
having me.
fan
Yeah.
of your posts for a long time.
One of the top. Many people have said one of the top poster of the year.
I think
candidate.
potential poster of the year for sure. He's been burning up the timeline. Jordy, where should we start?
I mean, I have a bunch of stuff that
Let's do it.
We can go through. I mean, we can just dive
Do,
right
wait,
into it.
do you want to
I
give a
wanted to
brief
talk-
intro on yourself and who you are before
Yeah,
we just
maybe we should start there.
started talking about the timeline?
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. I'm Will Brown. I'm a researcher at Morgan Stanley. By the way, nothing I say here is Morgan Stanley opinions. This is all me kind of just like sharing my thoughts.
Vibing.
I'm a researcher. I work a lot on stuff related to LLMs there. My background was in reinforcement learning theory. I did my PhD at Columbia. So I've been in New York City for a while. Big fan of New York City. Great things happening here all the time. And yeah, I also just like talking about the stuff on the internet and like participating in the open source community. There's lots of like cool either projects or code bases or papers or models always coming out. And like a lot of my job is like needing to know all that stuff and being a liaison essentially like from the internet to the company where like people want to understand like, okay, what's the latest model for XYZ that I should be using? What's the right open source toolkit? Especially because like at a big regulated company, we need to understand the landscape, especially for things that are like downloadable off the shelf without needing to like onboard a vendor. Like some things you onboard a vendor for, but it's also like a much heavier lift. And so like we need to like map the landscape of like what's the right tool for the job for everything LLM related. And so that's a large part of what I do. And it's also like my excuse for being on Twitter all day.
That's great.
It's a great excuse.
Where do you want to start?
Where aside from X, like where are you getting signal without giving away all the alpha? Because I imagine like by the time Dwarkesh has like done a podcast on something like it's been the information
most people have
is
read
like,
the papers,
disseminated. It's not necessarily alpha.
There's a surprising amount of alpha still on X just from places where you don't like so there's places I have not found much alpha on LinkedIn. The group chats, the anons, the open source like GitHub discussions. Lots of really good stuff is buried in like a GitHub issue or like a feature request where someone's like, hey, this thing would be cool.
Yeah.
And these ideas are just all over the internet, but you got to like know where to look for them.
Yep. I want to talk about humor. You actually posted about this like a month ago or 2 months ago. You said it's interesting that 1.5 billion parameters is all you need to crush math competitions, but you need like 15 trillion to make the model be funny. Maybe humor is the right measure of true intelligence. And for a long time, my eval has been tell me a funny joke. And every time there's a new model, it's tearing up X, and I ask it to tell a funny joke, and it's always the worst joke I've ever heard. It's kind of an anti-joke, but is that just a lack of labeled data essentially, or do you think there's something more like innately human to the idea of humor?
I mean, I think humor is like really hard, and it's also very hard to label.
Yep.
But I think it's also really hard to like, okay, this is like a big debate topic.
Sure.
Is like, would it like, I think people kind of assume, oh, just like train it on funny data.
Yep.
But like the things that make things funny are really subtle and pretty buried. A friend of mine, coworker actually did this experiment where he tried to like have one model be a judge of like, is this funny or not?
Yeah.
And what they do is they like lean into things that feel funny, and then the results were actually kind of funny, but what it ended up just doing was swearing more. So like if you swear a lot, models think that's funny. And so there's all these
vulgar,
like kind of
cheat
code, like there's a lot of cheat codes.
Sure.
And RL and training these models is like the path of least resistance is to find the cheat code. But like real humor, like the people that to be really funny, you have to be really smart. Like think of like your favorite comedian, like Norm or Larry David, or like all these people are like really smart. You can tell from the way that they compose jokes. Like there's like an attention, like attention is in like transformer attention of like ideas that need to combine in a very sparse, like precise way to make a good joke. Is like you can't just like shove things together. You kind of got to thread the needle to make a joke land. It's not a very coarse mechanism, and so I think like GPT 4.5 is like ginormous model, trillions of parameters most likely. And that like there's more room in the model to have these like little sparse connections materialize as you go through layers of the transformer. And I just haven't seen anything like that come from a smaller model.
How scale pilled are you based on the results from 4.5? Are you off to the races? Scale is all you need, or
Like
bigger,
not
less than pilled, or what?
I'm very RL scaling pilled. Like I'm not big transformer pilled really.
Sure.
Like
so
like
pre-training
I think,
wall real.
I think we don't like is if there's another 100 trillion tokens of data sitting out there ready to train on, go for it.
Yep.
I don't know. Like one, I think is like people should do some math about like how long until big GPUs are readily available, and it's like gonna be a while before people can really run like even DeepSeek R1 with like easy resources. Like you can kind of do it on one node, but like the quality bump over things that are much smaller is just like we're hitting diminishing returns on capital investment is a lot of it. Like they're taking it out of the API because like they can sell other things with the same GPUs and make more money is part of it. Like it's a lot of compute to keep a model up like that. It's slow. And the things that it's better on are like not that economically valuable. And so the sweet spot appears to be in this like between like 30 billion active parameters and or parameters total and like a couple hundred maybe, but like I don't know that like when Meta releases this behemoth model, I don't think anyone's really going to run behemoth for like their day-to-day stuff. It's just probably not going to be worth it.
So, I mean, given that, you know, Tyler Cowen's calling O3 AGI, like the economic results of these like big, but not crazy big models seems to be pretty good, run it on a node. Should we be talking more about, hey, it's good enough, let's bake it into an ASIC. Let's just bring down the inference cost to basically zero like we did with Bitcoin hashing and whatnot. Like, is that the conversation we should be having? Or
I mean, I think that's kind of been how like Grok, Cerebras, Avanova are like playing that game. And I think like those businesses make a lot of sense. Like they can kind of say, okay, this version of a transformer, we're going to be in this ballpark for a while. We can bake that into our plans a little bit. I think what's the next way, 2025, like people have been saying year of the agents, but like what I think that means is agentic RL. Like we're realizing RL works. Like the reason O3 is good is because it's trained to use tools. The way you train a model to use the right tool for the job is reinforcement learning. And they've said as much, like deep research, reinforcement learning. People have been throwing like random tools at models for 2 years, and it only now works, even though the models are the same. Like GPT-4 was a bigger model than a lot of the models people are using now. It had just as much training data, but it was not, or at least doesn't seem to have been RL'd in this specific way. And so that's kind of like my bet is like people are going to really want to train models to be agents. And I think you can get that to work well with a pretty small model.
Does that mean like a flourishing of RL'd big transformers for different tasks, or are we still searching for like the God model that can do everything all at once?
I mean, so, okay, I think there's a couple leaps we need to have models that can do everything all at once for like a super long amount of time. Like I tweeted something about this, like I'm happy to call O3 10-minute AGI. And I think like framing AGI in terms of like length of time it takes a human to do a task is like more reasonable than like a global framing. Like there's a bar of like drop in replace for a human that we are like definitely not at yet, like for general jobs. But most things a human can do in 10 minutes, you can like get O3 to do that pretty well. And so
that's a very
like I think there's
even like a like make a website in 10 minutes. Okay, you have a good human designer is like probably could whip something up pretty quickly. Yeah, but
not like an entire design system that works together across all the different websites. Makes a ton of sense. So seems like we're transformer maxing, we're RL maxing. Is there a new paradigm that you're excited about? Program synthesis? Are we bringing back symbol manipulation at some point? Like what are we going to pull from the tool chest to make this thing go to the next level?
I mean, I think it's just tool calls. Like I think when people say program synthesis, like we're already there. Like O3 is program synthesis, but the programs are like JSON and Python. Like you can do a lot with that. I did some tests on like ArcAGI problems where you give the screenshot to O3 and it can like basically figure it out in 10 minutes of like zooming in and looking at the thing and then writing some code to see if it like reproduces the thing. And like, it doesn't nail it, but they haven't released the benchmark, but I would guess it'll do reasonably well.
Yep.
What
they reported as much.
What are you seeing around AI adoption in finance broadly? I feel like we've been promised, like, you know, somebody can just press a button and generate the deck and like generate, you know, 20-page investment memo, and are these types of you know, deep research style tools being used extremely heavily already, or is there just even a greater, now that they're being used, you know, hey, let's go spend our time talking to, you know, 3 times as many experts so that we actually get proprietary kind of insight into the business?
Great question. And I think there's a couple different answers I have. One is that, like, on one hand, we at least have been pretty, I think, fast at certain things at adoption. Like the day GPT-4 launched, Morgan Stanley had integrations because we had been working on it. And these were like, we had press releases for these of like, we are ready to go. And so there are certain things where like initiatives can happen where effort comes together to make a thing ready to use. But there's a long tail of smaller tasks that there's not a drop-in replacement for. If there's a vendor, it would take a long time to onboard them, and it's not going to really solve the problem right away. And you could build something from scratch if you put a few people on for a few months, but like engineer hands are like few and far between. And so I think the deep research is an example of a product that I would say like works really well for the thing it's built for. It doesn't quite like do other stuff super well. Like if you wanted to give you a table of like 50 very precise things, it's going to make some mistakes there because the report format has a lot more room for like slop without it seeming like noticeably bad. The PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint Copilot is not great. It's not a thing that I have heard many people say saves them much time.
What are you?
Yeah.
Do you have any takes on enterprise AI adoption broadly? We were talking, I think, late last week about how Johnson & Johnson had tried hundreds of different tools. Like they went through the effort to just like try a bunch of stuff because there was a top-down mandate, and now they're just like cutting probably 90% of it.
Yeah.
And so all the startups that were like, yeah, we have a
pilot with J&J. It's going great. Like they won't churn. Well, 90% of them just churned maybe.
I mean, like most of these pilots are very much intended to be churned. Like they're very much they're not being rolled out broadly. They are coming through in a kind of walled off environment for people who are like going to be the beta testers. Yeah. And so like we have a crew of people who like, and I'm involved with this as well, of like as new stuff comes like online, we test it out, we give it feedback. Most of these do not convert. Because like we're very willing to like try stuff in terms of taking the call, in terms of like looking at a demo, but actually making a thing be part of like the company-wide workflow is like a pretty heavy lift. Think of like onboarding a cloud provider. Like a lot of the reason, like maybe this is like one reason cloud providers have the margins that they do is because like moving clouds is really hard. Moving all your stuff from like AWS to Azure is a pain. I think especially in regulated industries, like a lot of software onboarding faces the same sort of hurdles where you can't just like bring it in and use it. You got to like go through a whole process. And some companies have kind of planned for that and some have not. So like one example is I think like a reason that Windsurf has been successful as a Cursor competitor is they've leaned way harder on enterprise than Cursor has. Like they have really designed for enterprise integration, whereas Cursor really has not.
Do you was the Windsurf news surprising to you at all, or was that just obvious? OpenAI cares about coding, and they should have a sort of dedicated enterprise, coding.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, I think like to me, it felt like a sign of there being some more friction with Microsoft, because like originally it was like, oh, they already have that. It's Copilot.
Sure.
And so this to me seems like them taking a step away from Microsoft. But I mean, this is just speculation.
Yeah.
It does make sense that it's Cursor and that it is Windsurf and not I mean, they did try to buy Wind Cursor supposedly.
Sure.
Like I'm a Cursor user. I think it's great. I haven't seen anything that really sold me on like go move to Windsurf. I'm sure it's fine. It's just like the bar to like switch for me is like I need a thing to have a feature that's like killer that the other one doesn't have, and I have not like seen that yet. But I'm sure they have plenty of good stuff.
What now that we're like a couple months out from the DeepSeek moment, what is your takeaway? Is it something around kind of the optimization of the inferencing these models, or how have you processed that news now that we're a few months out?
Yeah, I mean they're like incredible at engineering. Like I think a lot of their open source releases have really like since R1, they've released a lot of code and details on their inference stack and training stack.
Even
they
Sam
really
Altman was
optimized.
posting like, hey, if you work for a high frequency trading firm, like come work at OpenAI. And I read that as like, oh, they want to optimize their models now.
Right. I think some of the big players have realized they didn't have to that much. Like,
of course.
DeepSeek is serving all of China on 2,000 GPUs. It's kind of silly that Anthropic has to have the warning about, oh, we have high limits. Please try again later for like their paid users. Like whereas like the DeepSeek chat is literally free anywhere. And so I think some other people probably are working on upping their inference efficiency game, but it's also like hard because it's very model specific. Every model has its own quirks and you got to optimize around that. It's hard to like have things be reliable and fault tolerant. So you think you can't just port back like FP8? Wasn't that one of the things, or like the mixture of experts blocking all those different things? Like it seemed like there was some stuff where it was like week 2 we were getting analyses, and I was like, this will probably be open sourced and ported to Llama and all the others like pretty quickly. But has it played out differently? I mean, to me, the surprising thing was not any individual one thing. It's that each of these is maybe like a 30%, 50% gain, but they have like 10, 15 of them that all stacked. So getting all of these to stack nicely is what's hard.
That's interesting. That's a great take.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
What are you expecting out of Alibaba and Quen 3?
Oh, I mean, I'm really excited. Like they make, I think, still the best model suites for like doing research. So like I do almost all of my experiments on Quen models just because they have a bunch of them. There's like so many versions. Like for every different model size, there's like 7 different versions. There's like a code one, a math one, a multimodal one, an audio one, a base, instruct, RL. Like they really are optimizing for user-friendly, like open source model ecosystem in a way that Llama was doing last year. This current year, we'll see if they can get their act together.
So are they also like RL pilled at this point and moving away from
I'm sure they are. Yeah, like they have a reasoning model. The reasoning model is not as impressive, like, but it is a pretty small one. It's like a 32 billion parameter model that like does well on math competitions.
Cool.
I don't know that anyone has really bitten the RL bullet in the way that DeepSeek did early, and then OpenAI has been doing lately, where they're really kind of betting. Like OpenAI seems to be essentially betting on scaling up RL as the path, and that it's not just longer reasoning, but it's reasoning integrated with system interaction. And that's kind of the drum I've been trying to beat for a while. Like a lot of the open source work I've been doing is around multi-turn tool calling RL. I think that we need better ecosystems for that. There's starting to be more tools you can go use, but for a while there was just nothing that supported this. Everyone was very RLHF pilled for too long.
Well, what do you think is going on with Llama 4? Did they just miss the memo about RL, or is there something else at work?
I mean, doing this stuff at a huge company where a lot is on the line is hard, and it's way easier to do nothing than something.
Sure.
And Meta also like doesn't have to print money off of their models. Like they don't like I think one analogy that I've been giving to people is like, why did Amazon not win NLP? They had like 10,000 people in the Alexa team in like 2018. Yeah. And they have just now released like okay language models. And they're really betting on Anthropic to drive their revenue there.
How are you thinking about the trade war in the context of the data center supply chain? And is that even, do you pay much attention to that, or is it kind of, you're busy enough on the model side?
I do follow it. Yeah, I mean, I listen to Dylan Patel talk a lot of stuff. He's great. Semi-analysis. It's hard for me to like give a real take. I don't think I think it's like important to keep an eye on. There's a lot of pieces of the supply chain that will get. I mean, it depends on what happens. Like,
yeah,
it's going to get messy for sure, probably. But I don't have like a hard stance.
You should become a VC and then you can just give it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should flip over.
No, I just think it's funny. Like in a year, we'll be like, bro, we were worried about the wrong transformers.
Yes,
you know?
yes, for sure. With the energy thing, for sure. I have one last question. How's the culture at Morgan Stanley? I mean, it seems like talking to you, you sound like a Silicon Valley founder, but you're at like a company that's like over 100 years old. Are you part of a new guard, or has Morgan Stanley always been this way and you're just the first to kind of post about it? What's it like working there?
I'm definitely like the first to like tweet a lot about it, but like the team I'm on has been around for maybe like, it's like a machine learning research team where we try to be like a finance version of like an MSR or a Bell Labs, where we're like off keeping up with the research. We write papers, we publish, we go to conferences. We kind of hang around as like expert consultants and advise on a lot of efforts throughout the company. And so the company has definitely been like betting on machine learning for a while.
That's awesome.
I think we are like probably ahead a lot of like the quant firms in terms of how early we were on realizing deep learning was important. And I think we've done a pretty good job at like keeping up with and following the like LLM craze. Like we partnered with OpenAI before ChatGPT.
Wow.
Wild.
And yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, this was great. No,
This
I'd
was
love
fantastic.
to, let's make it a regular thing.
This was
for sure.
fantastic.
This
Yeah,
was awesome.
I definitely want to have you back when there's a new model release or something, or a new paper that you publish. I'm excited to follow.
If I can do a quick plug, in June, I will be at the AI Engineer World's Fair in SF, giving a talk as a follow-up to my previous one.
Very cool. I think
Also,
we're going to that.
I
I think we'll see you there.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. See you there. Yeah. And then also I am doing a course of some kind soon. Official announcement pending, but if you really want to like
how to get rich quickly,
agents and RL stuff.
Okay.
And so if you DM me your email, I'll put you on the list for more info.
That sounds awesome.
Awesome.
Good luck with it. I'm excited.
Cool.
Yeah, this has been great.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Talk soon,
Great.
Will.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on.
See ya.